Good night. Welcome to the Who's There channel. This is where I tell you the scariest stories and tales. Please subscribe. I hope you enjoy the video.
Story 1. I never imagined I would go through such a heavy situation at work, especially at a neighborhood OXXO on one of those busy streets in Mexico City where everyone at least recognizes each other by sight. I always thought the worst thing that could happen was a fight between customers or someone complaining that they got the wrong change. But what happened one of those nights completely changed the way I see my own shift. It's been a while, but it feels like it happened just yesterday. That night the store was a bit busier than usual because it was the night before the weekend and a lot of people stopped by to buy beer or cigarettes. I was tired, almost at the end of my shift, just waiting for the time to go home. The clock showed almost 11:30 when a woman I had seen around several times walked in, holding her young son by the hand. She looked like she was in a rush, picked out what she wanted quickly and got in line. Out of nowhere, two guys with hoods burst through the door, already holding a gun in the air and shouting for everyone to put their hands on their heads. My guy. Body froze in that moment. I just managed to raise my hands and looked at them, hoping it would all end quickly. The woman was right in front of me, with her back to the robbers, trying to hold on to her son, who wanted to run. One of the guys pushed her and tried to snatch her purse. Everything got worse when she yelled, "Leave my son alone," and made a sudden move to protect her kid. The one with the gun got scared and fired almost without thinking. Everyone dropped to the floor, and all I could hear was the boy crying loudly and the woman falling down. The guys grabbed the cash and ran out, almost tripping over the shelves. I tried to get up but was frozen in place for a few seconds, so scared I couldn't move. As soon as I realized they had left, I ran to her and saw blood spreading on the floor. I called the police on my cell phone, trying to explain everything. With shaking hands, and soon after, people from the neighborhood started arriving. Her son wouldn't stop crying, and when I noticed everyone was already outside waiting for the ambulance. Emergency services took a while to get there, and unfortunately, they couldn't do anything. The woman died right there, between the soda case and the chips aisle. It was already a lot to take in, but the odd part started in the days that followed. My co-workers and I, the ones who were there that night, began to notice weird things with the automatic door's motion sensor. Always at the same time as the robbery, around 11:30, the sensor would go off as if someone was coming in. But there was nobody. We'd look at the door, the mechanism made its usual noise, but nothing happened. At first we thought it was just paranoia or a malfunction, but after a few days we saw on the security camera recordings a shadow quickly passing by the aisle where she fell. It wasn't clear, it didn't have a human shape, but every night just by the candy shelf a dark shadow seemed to appear and disappear within seconds. At the beginning, no one wanted to talk about it. We thought it was just our imagination. But it started bothering us. The manager suggested adjusting the sensor. They called a technician. He changed the angle, tested it out, but nothing stopped it. There were nights when he left the light on all night, but it was the same. The security guard mentioned he heard a soft crying coming from that aisle at closing time, but no one paid much attention, thinking it was just an echo or normal neighborhood sounds. I started to get nervous, just seeing the time come near. I began to work, wondering if it would happen again, staring at the door all the time. My co-workers didn't like taking the closing shift either because of this story. There were shifts no one wanted to cover. I tried not to think about it, telling myself it was just in my head, but it was hard to ignore everything that happened. Day I was alone organizing the drinks, and suddenly the sensor went off. I looked down the aisle and caught a glimpse of the shadow really fast, about the size of a person. I swear I froze for a few minutes trying to figure out what I was doing there. The silence in the back of the store felt heavy, not like the usual noise from the fridges. I ended up talking to other employees and found out several people had also seen or felt something strange there, but everyone preferred not to talk about it, so they wouldn't scare the customers or be called crazy. Some said it was just sadness. Others said it was bad energy because of what happened. All I know is the store was never the same again. After that, I caught myself thinking maybe it was the woman's way of asking for justice, or just a harsh reminder of a tragedy that everyone wanted to forget. I never saw her son again, but I heard their family moved out of the neighborhood soon after. The robbers never showed up to pay for what they did, at least not that I know of. The manager had someone bless the store, but it didn't change much. The sensor kept going off by itself, and sometimes the camera would show that dark blur again, always in the same place and time. People in the neighborhood talk, but nobody wants to get involved. The police didn't believe us when we showed the footage. They said it was equipment failure, a reflection, things like that. Honestly, I don't know what to think. There are nights when I remember the way she looked at me, terrified, trying to protect her son, and I wonder if someday we'll be able to forget what happened there. Every time I clock out and see the time close to 11:30, it's impossible not to look at the door, waiting for the sound of the sensor going off by itself. In the end, everything stayed sort of like that, without explanation. The store keeps running. Life goes on in the neighborhood, but the feeling that something is stuck there never really went away. I don't know if I believe in ghosts or wandering souls, but the truth is, nobody there could ever go back to working like before. And I know that every night that shadow still passes by, even if no one wants to admit it. I never told this story to many people because it sounds made up, but everyone who works with me knows it's real. You really have to live it to feel the weight that stayed in the store since that day. And the weirdest thing is that, even after all this time, nobody's had the courage to replace that stained tile in the aisle. Maybe it's a way to remember that everything that happened was real, not only on the cameras but in the lives of everyone who was there that night. Story 2. I was never one to believe in weird or supernatural stuff, but after what happened to me on that shift, my mind was never the same. I work as a night cashier at an OXXO right by the highway, in a stretch that's almost always empty. Just some truckers or people heading to the nearby industrial area pass by. Usually the nights are pretty uneventful, except for those times someone drops by just to heat up their meal or grab a coffee to stay awake. That night started like any other. I got there around 10, straightened up the shelves, cleaned what needed cleaning, and watched some videos on my phone. I was already on autopilot from working so many night shifts. By 2:30 in the morning, I usually start feeling sleepier and make myself some coffee. The only thing breaking the silence outside is when a car goes by, and even then, hardly anyone stops. At that hour, I even start getting suspicious whenever I see headlights coming down the road. That's when I heard a loud screech of tires really close to the store. I figured some driver must have gotten sick or something. I looked out the window and saw a white car pulling up all crooked, almost right at the OXXO door. Before I could go outside, I already saw a man getting out, kind of stumbling, holding the side of his head with blood running down his chin. He was sweaty, dirty with dirt, and looked disoriented. He came in fast, almost tripping, and basically yelled at me to call the police, saying someone was following him. Instantly, my heart was pounding. I've seen a lot in life, but nothing like someone this desperate. I told him to sit down, tried to get a cloth to wipe off the blood, and grabbed the phone to call for help. As I was dialing, he kept staring at the door like he was sure someone was about to come in. I asked if he knew who hurt him, and he just shook his head, saying, "It wasn't a normal person, it wasn't." When I looked back at his car, I noticed something weird. There was a person sitting in the back seat. From where I stood, I could clearly see the shape of someone just sitting there, staring at the store. But they didn't seem to move or look away, just sitting there, totally still. I asked the guy if there was someone else with him, but he just ignored me, telling me to lock the door and not let anyone in. I really didn't know what to think anymore. I grabbed the phone and called the cops, explained what little I knew, and asked them to get there quick. Meanwhile, I tried to calm the man down, offered him some water, but he was shaking so bad he could barely hold the cup. He kept looking at the door's glass, asking over and over when the sun would come up. The shift dragged on. It felt like time had stopped. A few times I thought about going over and checking out the car, but something held me back. After about 10 minutes, the guy got real quiet, like he was totally drained. I asked again about the blood, and he said in a low voice, almost whispering, that someone was on the highway who shouldn't have been there. He said he heard voices and laughter out in the brush, even though he didn't see anyone. When he tried sitting back in a chair, he just fainted. Either from stress or exhaustion, I don't even know. I looked outside again, and that shape was still there, frozen in the back seat. The car's headlights were on, lighting up a patch of road. For a second, I thought I saw the shape turn its head toward me, but maybe it was just my tired mind, or just the headlight angles on the glass. Still, the store felt heavy, like I wasn't alone in there. The police took a while to show up. While I waited, I tried focusing on the hum of the refrigerators to distract myself, but it didn't work. I wondered if I should go out and really check the car, see if that person needed help, but every time I thought about it, I got this uneasy, feeling like it wouldn't be safe. I looked at the store's security cameras, zoomed in to try to get better details. On the monitor, it was just a dark shape sitting there, no way to tell if it was a man, a woman, or maybe even just a bag. When the squad cars got there, I left the counter and called the officers, explaining everything again. They went straight to that car outside, checked out the guy who'd fainted inside, then walked over to the back of the car. I watched from the doorway, holding my breath, super tense. The cops looked at each other, opened all the doors, used their flashlights, and started talking quietly on the radio. I thought it was weird that one officer came up and asked if I was sure I saw someone sitting in the car. I told him I really did. He just wrote down my name and number and told me to wait. I leaned on the counter, watching everything almost in slow motion, trying to process what was happening. They brought the man from the store to the ambulance, cleaned up his head, and he didn't seem to remember much. Meanwhile, another squad car showed up, this time with an older cop. They talked, then asked to see the security video. I showed them everything on the system, found the time when it started. In the video, the guy gets out of the car, but the back seat, where I swore I saw someone, looks empty or too dark to be sure. I was embarrassed, but they said that was normal. Sometimes the cameras just don't show everything. In the end, they told me to stay available if they needed more info, but they left quick. Must have been in a rush. I had to finish my shift, cleaning up until sunrise. I slowly got back to normal, stocking shelves to clear my head. When customers started coming in again, I tried to forget everything. I only went home after my shift was totally wiped out. At the end of that week, I heard the delivery guys saying they found a car abandoned further down the highway, with blood and evidence of a struggle. They said there were tracks in the dirt going into the brush, but nobody really knew what had happened. I tried not to think about it, but I could tell some of my co-workers heard and stayed quiet too. For days, I wondered if I should tell my family. Everything. But in the end, I just said it had been a rough night, lots of confusion. I don't know if anyone would believe me. From the outside, it just looks like another weird midnight situation, but I still remember that man's face, all the tension, the feeling of being watched. I never looked at the highway the same way during night shifts again. Whenever a car goes by slowly, I keep an eye on it longer than I used to. Sometimes I still imagine I'll see someone sitting in the back seat, staring at the store. Maybe it's all in my head, or just the leftover trauma from that night. I don't know. But one thing's for sure. After that night, I started taking people's weird stories way more seriously. All I can say is, I never felt as small as I did inside those glass walls in the middle of nowhere. Sometimes when I look outside and see the darkness swallowing up the highway, I remember that night and wonder if I really saw someone in the back seat, or if my mind just pieced fear and exhaustion together. To this day, I still can't explain it. Story 3. I've been working for about 3 years as a cashier at an OXXO in Tijuana. My shift usually starts in the afternoon, so I'm already used to the hustle and bustle, the same familiar faces of neighbors who come in every day, and the sound of automatic doors sliding non-stop. I always found the environment kind of tiring, but nothing too different from other retail jobs. Nothing really weird ever happened to me there, just common situations, like customers complaining about change or asking for phone credit. I always try to be friendly, but most of the time I'm on autopilot, just waiting for time to pass. But in recent weeks I noticed something that started small but kept growing. A strange feeling every time I looked at the security mirrors, those big ones that hang at the top of each aisle. At first I didn't pay much attention to it. I thought it was just a reflection, some customer from the back of the store, or even my own distorted image in the glass. But on several days, almost without meaning to, I started seeing a woman reflected in those mirrors. What really caught my attention was her clothing. It looked old-fashioned, long skirt, blouse buttoned up to the neck, colorless fabric, like what my grandmother wore in old photos. Whenever I tried to pay closer attention, the woman would disappear. I'd look again and there was nobody around in the aisle that the mirror was reflecting. I tried not to think much about it, but it didn't stop. Every day her image appeared in a different aisle, sometimes by the cold drinks, then near the pastries, or in the hygiene section. What bothered me was that it was never actually someone in that spot, just that strange reflection. One day she was so close to the mirror that it seemed like she was looking directly at me. I felt uncomfortable, like I was invading a space. That wasn't mine, but I took a deep breath and kept working. I gradually started mentioning it to my fellow cashier, jokingly, saying that the mirror was kind of haunted. She laughed, said it must be fatigue messing with my head, because everyone sees weird stuff from time to time, especially working late shifts. Even so, after that conversation, I became more alert to see if I wasn't really overreacting. I started paying better attention to the clock, the positions in the store, and where that woman appeared. There was no pattern. Sometimes it was in the morning, other times at night, both during quiet shifts and busy ones, and she always disappeared quickly. I started paying attention to customers' clothes to see if anyone could be mistaken for that. Reflection. But nobody ever wore anything similar to what I saw in the mirror. Everything was very modern, colorful, people in shorts, t-shirts, flip-flops. Nothing like old skirts, nothing like long, light-colored dresses. I started getting a little worried, not knowing if I was getting paranoid from looking at those mirrors every day. But the more I forced myself to ignore it, the more I ran into that same reflection. There was one day when I got more scared. I was relaxed at the register, without much of a line, and I saw something moving in the mirror of the last aisle out of the corner of my eye. When I really looked, the woman was standing there, as if organizing something on the shelves. It seemed so natural that I even thought it was a distracted customer, but when I looked directly at the aisle, there was nobody there. In the reflection, she was still there, but when I blinked, she disappeared again. I felt a strange chill, not from fear, but like I had fallen into a bottomless pit. I didn't say anything to anyone that day, and finished my shift quieter than usual. I started talking less with customers, just doing my time, hoping not to see anything different in the mirror. When I went home, I felt a huge urge to tell someone, but every time it seemed absurd. Nobody would believe a story like that. Woman in old clothes who only appears in supermarket mirror reflections? I thought I was going a bit crazy myself. After a few days, I decided to call the manager over when the store was empty. I asked, half jokingly, if they had ever seen something strange in the mirrors. He laughed at first, but then got more serious. He said some customers had already commented about a weird woman in the back of the store who appeared in reflections but disappeared when they looked for real. He also heard from some delivery guys who sometimes had the feeling of being watched when they unloaded merchandise at night. The manager said he didn't like messing with that stuff because customer superstitions are always plenty, but he admitted that even he once thought he saw someone in old clothes walking by the beverage aisle. According to him, it was better to ignore it. This is a neighborhood store. There's always some story. If you mess with it too much, it becomes gossip, he joked, trying to lighten the mood. I left that conversation somewhat relieved, but also worried, because it wasn't just in my head. Started observing more who entered the store. I tried to compare with the silhouette of the woman in the mirror, but it never matched. I even noticed her face once, briefly. She was pale, hair pulled back, kind of expressionless. I felt a certain discomfort, not from fear, but from not knowing if this was some trick of my mind or something really out of the ordinary. Every time she disappeared, I tried to continue with work, but my head stayed there, going back to the mirror. I started noticing if any type of light change or movement affected the mirror, but nothing changed. Day, night, with the store full or empty, the reflection appeared the same way for just a few seconds. A delivery guy chatting with me commented out of nowhere that someone always messes with the cookie shelves when he's not looking. I found it strange, but didn't say anything. He seemed serious, like someone who had been through something similar in there. There was one night when I was already tired, just wanted to finish my shift and go home to rest. The store was empty for a few minutes, and I took the opportunity to check the bathroom stock, because every time we ran out of paper, the manager complained. When I came back, I looked at the refrigerated drinks aisle and saw her reflection again. This time she seemed more still, didn't even pretend to move things around, just looked at me from afar. I stood frozen, holding the keys, until a customer came in making noise and broke the mood. I went back to the register kind of shaken and kept thinking if I should somehow tell someone else or try to forget. But deep down, I think I started accepting it as part of the store's daily routine, just like the leak they never fix or the strong coffee smell near the microwave. Over time, even customers who said they felt a presence stopped commenting. It seems like whoever is there every day just learns to live with these little oddities. A few weeks passed, and even though I saw the woman in the mirror from time to time, the fear got smaller. It became a silent routine, a discreet presence that only those who work there really notice. Sometimes, when the store is noisy, I don't even remember her. But on quiet late afternoons, with the sun hitting the glass and the aisle shadow growing, I look at the mirror almost expecting to catch that lost look again. I've thought about changing shifts, but life here in Tijuana is hectic, and getting a steady job isn't easy. I prefer to keep things as they are, and not try to explain what might not even have an explanation. There are nights when I even forget about the story, but one different reflection is enough for everything to come back to mind. Nothing bad ever happened to me, just that uncomfortable feeling of being watched sometimes. There was a customer who said they had already seen a different woman among the shelves, and that, when trying to talk to her, she simply disappeared. Whenever I hear things like that, I get that doubt whether I should stay quiet so I don't become a joke among the store staff, or if I should share what I feel. For now, I prefer to keep it to myself because, in the end, nobody ever actually found that woman. Now, when I'm at the register at night, I usually look less at the mirrors. Not out of fear, I think, but so I don't get distracted from work. Even so, from time to time, I run into that curious reflection that disappears as soon as I try to focus. In those moments, I remember what the manager said about not giving material to something that could scare people and become a neighborhood ghost story. The strangest thing is that the more time passes, the faster the woman's figure disappears. As if little by little she unlearned how to appear there, or I stopped noticing. Maybe with time everything will just stay in memory, becoming a poorly told story of someone who worked too much in a convenience store. What's certain is that now I try to take everything more lightly, laughing at these coincidences when I talk to myself while arranging products. Sometimes I think seeing the woman in the mirror became like a good superstition, one of those we use to explain weird days. But talking to people from other OXXOs, nobody seems to have been through a similar situation. Maybe it's just this spot in the city, or maybe each store has its mystery and nobody talks about it for fear of what people will think. Meanwhile, I keep working as always, doing my tasks, seeing hurried people passing through the register, kids asking for candy, and that smell of warm bread at the end of the afternoon. I still look at the mirror from time to time, out of habit. But now, I don't let it mess up my day anymore. The important thing is to go home in peace and not carry things that only make sense inside the store. Nobody ever recorded the woman who appears in the mirror, even with so many cameras scattered throughout the OXXO. Whenever someone tries to capture the image, the reflection disappears. The monitoring people already looked, but they say it was light reflection or mirror position, nothing major. I just agree, keep to myself, because I already understood that there are things that are better left unexplained. I keep wondering if other long-time OXXO employees also noticed her presence and just never told anyone. Or if, over time, this goes away after we change stores. For now, I avoid looking too much at the end of my shift, when the store is already empty and the streetlight hits the glass, forming different shadows. I prefer not to think too much about it. I've tried in vain to research old neighborhood stories to see if some accident or event could justify someone appearing like that. But I never found anything. No similar cases in local newspapers, just gossip and urban legends without rhyme or reason. So I let it be, accept the mystery as part of the routine, just like the alarm that goes off by itself or the neighbor who crashes his car into the door. Time passes, and that feeling of mystery never completely goes away. There are days when I think I invented a good part of those memories just to break the store's monotony, but then suddenly I see the reflection disappear quickly and remember it wasn't just me. Customers, delivery guy, manager, everyone has seen something. They just don't talk about it anymore, so as not to bring bad luck or become a joke among the old-timers. Deep down, I don't know if the woman in the mirror is trying to say something or just appears for the sake of appearing. Maybe it's just old memory stuck in some corner of the store. Some error of light and glass. I never tried to call out to her. Never really felt fear, just that restless curiosity that leaves us kind of distracted. And so, I go on with life, working and silently coexisting with the strange, just like any other neighborhood routine. Maybe, when I leave this OXXO, I won't even remember this, or I'll tell it all as a joke to friends from another job. Or then, it could be that many nights later I'll still look at supermarket mirrors expecting to see a displaced face, dressed out of time. For now, I'm still here, dealing with lines, messy inventory, and that presence that today is already part of the scenery, even though nobody officially admits it. In the end, the store remains the same. Customers come and go, rumors stop, time passes, but whoever is there every day knows that there's always some unexplained detail left in the corners of the aisles. I think that's what makes a neighborhood a real neighborhood, each place keeping its little mystery that only those who live there every day believe.